water had been rising for 3 hours when I realized I was no longer alone. 10 pairs of yellow eyes surrounded me in the darkness, reflecting the last twilight like floating lanterns on the black river surface. My wooden boat had hit a submerged root 20 minutes earlier, tearing a fist-sized hole in the hull, and now I was stuck there, 15 kilometers from the nearest village, watching the water slowly invade the bottom of the boat while hungry black caimans circled closer and closer. Sweat dripped down my face, mixed with the mist rising from the river, so dense I could taste the salt on my lips. The humidity was so heavy it felt like a living creature pressing against my chest, making each breath difficult. 42 degrees even, with the sun already hidden behind the giant trees. I had 68 years of experience on this river, but I had never felt fear like this, visceral and cold in my gut, while counting the eyes multiplying in the growing darkness. I woke before dawn, as I've done for 50 years. The hammock was still damp from the night's sweat, and the musty smell of the palm hut reminded me that the rainy season was coming early this year. My wife had died 3 years ago, and my children lived in the city now, so it was just me and the river. I touched the scar on my left shoulder, a reminder of a caiman that got me when I was 20. Today, I needed to reach the fishing spot 15 kilometers upriver before the midday heat made it impossible to work. I grabbed my wooden spear that my father taught me to make when I was 8, threw it in the boat along with the fishing net, a machete, a bottle of warm water, and 3 overripe bananas. I pushed the boat into the water when the sky was still pink and gray, and felt the first wave of humid heat wrap around me like a wet blanket. Mist rose from the river in thick spirals, and I could only see 5 meters ahead. I paddled slowly, listening to the sounds of the forest waking up, monkeys howling high in the trees, macaws screaming, the heavy splash of something large entering the water in the distance. 2 hours later, the sun was already high and relentless. My shirt was soaked, stuck to my back, and each stroke of the paddle left trails of sweat running down my arms. The river water was low because of the drought of recent weeks, exposing twisted roots and sandbars where caimans rested with their mouths open in the heat. I counted at least 30 of them in the first stretch, most small, but I saw 3 large ones, over 3 meters, their bodies covered in dried mud and scars from territorial fights. My stomach turned when I passed too close to one of them and saw the flies buzzing around the open mouth, full of yellow teeth the size of my fingers. I reached the fishing spot when the sun was at its zenith, turning the river into a mirror of blinding light. I drank half my water at once, feeling the warm liquid go down my throat, but not relieving the thirst. I threw the net, hoping to catch at least 10 kilos of fish before returning. The humidity was so heavy I could see droplets suspended in the air, shining like broken glass in the light. 42 degrees. My skin felt like it was slowly cooking. I was pulling the net full of small fish when I felt the impact. A dull thud under the boat, strong enough to make me fall sitting down. Then another and another. I dropped the net and grabbed the edges of the boat, trying to keep my balance while something large repeatedly hit the hull from the outside. I looked at the water and saw a dark shadow circling, then another, then 3 caimans, large ones. They had smelled the fish in the net and were investigating. One of them emerged 2 meters from the boat, the huge head like a moss-covered rock, the yellow eyes staring at me without blinking. It opened its mouth and hissed, a deep sound I felt in my chest. I grabbed the paddle and hit the water, trying to scare them, but they didn't move. 2 more appeared on the other side. Now there were 5 I could see, but I felt there were more underneath, invisible in the dark water. That's when I heard the sound, a long tear, wood, splitting. I looked down and saw water starting to come in through the bottom of the boat, gushing through a crack that had opened in the old hull. A root. I had hit a submerged root I hadn't seen, and now the boat was cracking. Water already covered my ankles. My heart started racing. 15 kilometers from the village, alone, boat sinking, caimans around. Panic rose up my throat like vomit, but I swallowed it. 68 years on this river taught me that panic kills faster than Caiman. I took a deep breath, feeling the heavy humidity enter my lungs. I needed to think. I took off my shirt and tried to stuff it in the hole, but the water pressure pushed it back. The boat was sinking faster now, water already mid-calf. I looked around searching for something, anything. The spear. I grabbed the spear and the machete. If the boat sank, at least I'd have something to defend myself with. But defend against what? 6 Caimans now. No, 7, 8. They were converging, attracted by the commotion, by the smell of fear in my sweat, by the dead fish floating around the torn net. One of them swam so close I could see the scars on its snout, deep grooves from ancient battles. It was over 4 meters, easy. 50 years old maybe, a patriarch, a killer. The sun began to set, and with it came something worse than the heat, darkness. I knew what it meant. At night, Caimans hunt. At night, they're invisible until they're on top of you. At night, there's no escape. The water was now at my waist inside the boat. It was sinking inch by inch, and I had nowhere to go. The shore was too far, at least 50 meters, and swimming in that water with 8 Caimans around would be suicide. I stood still, holding the spear with both hands, watching the yellow eyes multiply in the darkness. 9, 10 Caimans surrounded me now, their black silhouettes forming a perfect ring around the dying boat. They waited, patient. They knew what was going to happen, just a matter of time. The boat was almost submerged now, only the edge above water. My feet no longer touched the bottom. I was balanced on the tip of the bow, the highest part, with water at my neck. The spear in my right hand, the machete in my left. My heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. The largest of the Caimans began to approach, slow, deliberate, eyes fixed on me. 3 meters, 2.5 meters, 2 meters. I screamed, a guttural roar, ancient that came from somewhere deep in my chest, a sound my ancestors made when they faced jaguars and anacondas and certain death. And then I did something my grandfather taught me when I was a child. I became still, completely still. Caimans hunt movement. If you don't move, sometimes they don't attack. Sometimes. The big one stopped 1 meter away, opened its mouth. I could smell the rotten flesh between its teeth, see the neck muscles tensing. My whole body trembled, but I didn't move. It stayed there for 10 seconds, 20, 30, an eternity. And then slowly it closed its mouth and sank, disappeared. The others hesitated. The leader had withdrawn. Some began to move away too, swimming to the shores, losing interest. But 3 remained, the young ones, the hungry ones, the impatient ones. The moon was rising now, a weak half-moon that barely illuminated the water. The boat finally sank completely, and I was floating, holding the spear above my head with one hand and the machete in the other. My feet didn't reach the bottom, water at my chin. The 3 remaining Caimans circled closer now, anxious. I had to swim. There was no choice. 50 meters to shore. I started swimming on my back slowly, keeping my eyes on the 3 pairs of yellow eyes. Each stroke seemed to last an hour. The water was warm as blood, thick with silt and rotting plants. 10 meters. The Caimans followed. 20 meters. They were getting closer. 30 meters. One of them dove. I couldn't see it anymore. Panic exploded in my chest. Where was it? Where? I spun in the water, searching, the spear raised. 40 meters. Almost there. Almost. And then I felt it. Something brushed my leg. Hard. Scaly. I screamed and struck blindly downward with the spear, feeling it hit something solid. The Caiman exploded from the water beside me, mouth open, trying to get me. I thrust the spear straight into its open throat, with all the strength left in my old arms. It rolled, pulled me down, but I didn't let go. We spun together underwater in a dance of death, until it finally broke free and fled, the spear still stuck in its mouth. I was out of air, stomach burning, arms dead, but I saw the shore, 2 meters. I swam with the last strength, claws scratching mud, pulling my body out of the water, rolling onto the wet grass, coughing river, spitting blood from my nose. I lay there for an hour, shaking, looking at the stars through the tree canopy, hearing the 2 remaining Caimans swimming in the water a few meters away. My spear was gone. I only had the machete, and I was alive. 68 years and still alive. When I finally managed to get up, I started walking along the shore toward the village, barefoot, wet, hurt, but alive. The moon lit the way, and I walked all night, 15 kilometers through the mud and roots and fear. I arrived when the sun was rising again, and my 7-year-old granddaughter was playing at the village entrance. She saw me and ran screaming to the others. They carried me inside, gave me water, cleaned my cuts, and I told them what had happened. 10 Caimans, I said. 10 hungry Caimans surrounded me and I survived. They nodded their heads with respect. The village elder, a 90-year-old man, touched my shoulder and said, "The forest tested you and you passed. Now you can rest." But I knew I wouldn't rest. Not yet, because tomorrow I would return to the river. I always return. It's where I belong. It's where I'll die someday, but not today. Today, I lived.